For over 30 years, we've had the privilege to live and work in this great community. Kerrigan, Estes, Rankin, McLeod, and Thompson, representing accident victims across Northwest Florida.
And now, from Pensacola, Florida, it's Within Reason with Bob Kerrigan and Bill Rankin.
Welcome to Within Reason. Bob Kerrigan
and Bill Rankin.
And we're with you tonight to talk about a number of things. Bill's got all kinds of interesting
We say this every week, but this week we really mean it. We've really got a lot of good stuff.
We have some good stuff, yeah. Well, let's go on something we hadn't even talked about starting with, just quickly. And that's the idea that the University of West Florida is going to, is in discussions to buy a golf course. Now, golf courses are losing money all over the country. Golf courses are in trouble. The better golf courses in our area were taken over by a management company. I know because I play in all of them, okay?
Well, the Moors is apparently, somebody's watering it and maintaining it, and there's no golf.
Well, that's
so somebody's losing a lot of money on the Moors.
Jimmy Lee owns that, and he's got a big investment, and it just didn't produce, and so he's keeping it up, hoping eventually to sell it. But here's the point. You have a university whose mission is education, and this creates so much public distrust of universities when they engage in activities that have nothing to do with their education mission. Now, the argument is, and there's an op-ed piece by somebody who's involved with as a volunteer or something for the university, who says what a sweetheart deal it is. It's a win-win deal. Well, first of all, business people wouldn't say it was a win-win deal till they saw the business plan.
Right.
What's the business plan?
I mean, what's it going to cost the taxpayers?
What's it going to cost? And who's getting the cash?
And supposedly, well, the students can go out there and help run it. Well, why does the university have to own it for that? Because if you've got a bunch of educated interns, say, well, I'll let these young people work for you for free.
Right.
That's not a hard sell.
And how can you have a stable golf course? You know, Florida State's had one forever. It's called Seminole, I think, is a course that they've had forever, and it's operated as a business, okay? But they've owned it from the beginning of time. I don't know, and maybe someone has an example, of any university in the country that's going out and buying a golf course. We have 1,600 acres on this campus. 1,600 acres. Build your own golf course, okay?
Well, I don't know. Building a golf, I mean, it may be... Depends on the numbers.
It depends on the numbers.
Building a golf course may be a lot more expensive than just buying scenic hills.
It might be, but if you're going to be in the golf course business, you surely ought to consider, do we build our own, or do we buy one adjacent to the university? But again, I think...
Is it the best use of money? Or maybe they've got some way worked out that...
Well, what we need to see before everybody announces it's a win-win is who's getting the cash. That would be my first question. All right, who's getting the taxpayers' money, and how much money are they paying, and what are we getting for it? Because this is hardly considered one of the premier golf courses.
The people who are rooting for the win-win may be one of the people unloading
who knows? Who knows?
An albatross golf course on the public.
Well, typically when you have a fanfare of support for the government to buy something, the people who are selling it are usually behind the scenes as the biggest cheerleaders.
They're usually pretty happy.
And so before we go buy something by the University of West Florida, we better know what we're buying, and we better have a good due diligence and disclose all the people involved. Who's got their hand out for some of the cash? Why is this all coming up now? And it might all be quite legitimate in terms of a business proposal, but it's got to make business sense. And we haven't seen that yet. So maybe we will see it. I hope so.
And like a lot of public expenditures, you know, is there anybody else willing to pay for this?
Exactly.
And if they are, what are they willing to pay? And is the public paying a lot more than the free market value? Right. I don't know the answers to these questions.
Are there people out trying to buy this golf course? As I started to say earlier, this is hardly considered one of the premier golf courses. It's surrounded by residential structures. It's in the middle of a residential neighborhood that's adjacent to the university. But again, How do people come up with these kinds of ideas? Well, usually it's because the person selling it is fueling the interest to buy it. Now, if they said, we will give you the golf course, give to the University of West Florida, I'd still want to say, well, wait just a second. Yeah. These things cost about $1 million a year to maintain. How are we going to come out of that? And it's like, well, maybe we don't even want the darn golf course. Yeah. And if they're talking about...
There's some assets that you'd rather not have.
You'd rather not have. So if we're talking about buying the golf course, we need to see a whole lot more before we announce a win-win about anything. All right, let me go to one other thing locally, and then we're going to go to our national story.
Yeah, this is a fascinating local story.
Right. Here was the story. This was in Friday's paper. Republican Representative Jeff Miller has suspended his Twitter account following this disclosure that a staff member used it to seek opinions on the widely discredited allegation that President Barack Obama was not born in the United States. Dan McFall, Miller's longtime chief of staff and spokesman, said Thursday he tweeted the question, quote, was Obama born in the United States, unquote, on Miller's Twitter page on May 18th. Now, without the congressman's approval.
Of course.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. So let me ask you this. Does this suggest that Representative Miller has his own Twitter account that staff members can put something on under his name and he doesn't know anything about it?
You know, he was in some kind of a contest. He would send out emails, say, well, I'm in a contest to see whether I'm in a contest with some other representative to see who can get the most Twitter followers and sign up so I can win this contest, and then you get Twitter feeds from Representative Miller about all the wonderful stuff he's trying to put out there.
Right.
You got to assume that every cost to this has something to do with taxpayers paying for it.
Well, I would think it would, but certainly staff time. Okay.
First of all, how many stupid things, if let's say you were trying your best, regardless of what you're supposed to do with your Twitter account, to take down Obama and help Romney, the worst thing you can do is get back into this birther nonsense.
Of course.
It's terrible. I mean, you've got great criticisms of President Obama just sitting out there like a T-ball on the tee, and to bring up the birther thing, it's just stupid. It's you know, the only one bringing up birther stuff is Trump, and Trump doesn't care what nonsense he has to say. As long as the camera's pointed his way, he's happy. He doesn't care how stupid he has to be to get it that way.
When McFall said, I take complete responsibility, I would like to have heard the person who owns the account saying, I take complete responsibility. It's my account. But somehow, he hasn't been quoted. He can't be located. He can't respond. No one can talk to him. So we have a newspaper reporter, Shannon Nickinson, who's a new reporter, that they are quite pleased to have her, by the way. So she says that she is, let me see where that story was. Here it is right here. It says, Jeff Miller's oops sees sunlight. Well, what happened was, well, let me back up for a second. If you really wanted to tweet something to get a survey understanding about, what about this question? Are you now unemployed looking for work? Okay, how about that? How many people respond to that? Maybe 80% of the people receiving the tweet would say, I am unemployed and I am looking for it. Or any other question of regional significance or interest. Are you not going to the Gulf of Mexico because of a fear of the oil? Yeah. That'd be a good question.
Well, this is kind of a rhetorical question.
It is a rhetorical question.
Raising the suggestion.
Of course.
Said, well, I didn't say he wasn't born in this country. I was just checking.
It was designed to feed all of the Miller followers who they suspected, 90% of which would say they don't believe the President of the United States was born in Hawaii. They don't believe it. Now, so when McFall said, I take complete responsibility, this is, if I can make this slight on the Republicans, is pretty typical of a Republican's way of taking responsibility, in my opinion. It's like this. I take complete responsibility. So she called him to discuss the level of that responsibility.
Oh, good.
Like questions like, who else has access to the account?
Right.
Did you discuss it with any other staff member? How many people responded? Why did you take it up?
Does the congressman have anything to do with it? Because if you read these tweets, it's direct from the congressman from his heart. Oh, and now we find out, well, not exactly, because there's somebody else doing it and he doesn't.
Well, here's the Mr. Responsibility response. I'm not going to discuss it. I'm not. So that's my cut at the Republic. I'm not discussing why I'm responsible. Well, wait just a second. When you say I'm responsible, you mean like what happened?
You didn't even run it by the congressman? You didn't say, Congressman, wouldn't this be a neat idea to raise that discredited old birther issue?
Yes.
And see how many people in our district are really stupid.
And in this district, it could be a high number.
It could be a lot.
It could be a high number. Okay, what do you got?
Oh,
yeah,
I got
lots of good
Well,
stuff.
first I'm going to start with some questions. Oh, we ought to probably start with merit retention because that's a state issue.
Yeah,
and it's an issue. This is and some of this is just so typical of the Florida bar, so typical of the do-gooders and the nannies who want to do good with other people's time and money. Merit retention is another name for the way appellate judges are dealt with by the voters. And for the last 40 years, we've had a system where nowhere is it labeled merit retention. On the ballot, it says, should Justice or Judge so-and-so be returned to office? I think that's pretty much literally what it says. Well, the bar, the organized lawyers, which we all have to be members of, which has been quiescent for 40 years, while every judge, good, bad, or indifferent, and they're not all great, has been retained in office, is suddenly really interested in how dumb the people are and how they're going to straighten out the people, because now that 3 Supreme Court justices are being attacked by...
Not yet.
Well, they will be.
They will be.
Alleged corporate interest groups. First of all, Bob and I want to point out immediately...
Can I say this before you go any further? It's these same corporate influence groups that are represented by all the white-stocking law firms, including some in our city, that are all tied up with the heavy corporate money that now is going to be funneling that money against Supreme Court justices. So these highbrow lawyers and law firms are now going to have to take the position that we are opposed to the very people that they actually have been sort of in bed with for a very long time. One particular law firm that touts their connections to the Florida bar. But go ahead.
Okay. It's Justice Lewis, Justice Quince, and Justice Pariente.
Yeah.
And you and I, because we've talked about it before, we think they ought to be retained.
There are 3.
And a lot of people skip this on they're thoughtful justices. You might not like the way they rule all the time, but we are strongly in favor of their retention. Just check that they ought to be returned off. They shouldn't be kicked out by this interest group. However, all of a sudden, the bar had one of the justices in Iowa. In Iowa? Iowa.
I thought it was Idaho.
No, that's Iowa. My God, in Idaho, their ruling might be to kill all gays, not to let them get married.
Okay.
No, it's Iowa, I'm pretty sure. And they found in their constitution a right to gay marriage, and people didn't like that, and voted all of them out of office that could be voted out of office. Well, one of those justices came and talked to the Florida bar about how awful it was that the people decided to throw these people out, and how dumb all the people were for doing this because they don't understand the role of judges. Mm-hmm. So here's what the bar does. They retain a marketing firm to just see how dumb people are. And they ask people in the mall, what do you know about merit retention? Well, in connection with what? What does that mean, merit retention? Are we talking about sports or teachers or what? I don't know anything about merit retention. Oh, we need education. But the ballot doesn't say merit retention. It just says, do you want this judge or justice in office? Pretty simple. Doesn't need a lot of education, really. Do you want him in office? Yes or no?
Excellent point. It doesn't say it on the ballot.
It doesn't say it on the ballot.
The public never sees the word merit retention on the ballot. Excellent point.
The bar's got that. Now, this is a very neutral fact sheet that they put out at our expense, which is one of the things that annoys me. Yeah. And they talk about the system. And judges really can't tell you how they're going to vote. They can't. They're very restrained in the kind of things they can do. But don't worry about them. They're raising lots and lots of money for people to help them.
So how are we going to educate people? What are we going to tell them?
Well, we're going to tell them about the role of judges. And we're going to tell them basically that you're too stupid to know whether these judges are doing a good job or not, because they have to rule on stare decisis and In other words, if you're just mad that somebody found in the Constitution you think is crazy, and I don't think it's crazy, but a lot of people think it's crazy that they found in their Constitution the right to gay marriage, leave them in there anyway. I mean, the whole thing is just kind of the elites all of a sudden now are engaged, and as usual, using somebody else's money to do what they want to do.
Well, the founders were aware of that very problem, okay, because that's why they gave federal judges life tenure. They knew what would happen.
Right.
Okay.
You got an unpopular ruling,
we'll
like
booting you out. Okay.
Right,
but
like Brown v. Board of Education.
Right.
Well,
or any of a number of others.
Well, that's right. You make a good point.
Yeah. So they knew it was coming.
But should people be allowed to do stuff like that? I don't know. Maybe not. But under our system, you get to throw out judges and justices on the appellate court, not our local trial courts. Now, Judge Hawk, who was responsible for the Taj Mahal and committed all kinds of reprehensible stuff, he stayed in.
I know.
And the bar was fine with that.
Well, here's the thing. The bar never took a position against him. And that, to me, was where the bar failed. Because the bar should have come out and said, we are 100% opposed to this judge being renewed because of what has done. Because what he has done is he has...
Can they do that? Can they take political positions? I'm not even sure they can.
Well, maybe they can't. That's a good point.
We certainly did. And the only problem, really the only problem statewide is we don't have enough viewers, because then everybody would know everything.
Well, he had a very low...
a very low retention rate.
Affirmation, very low.
But there was another first DCA judge below him.
Yeah, and that didn't make a lot of sense at the time. Well, there was some problems with that judge.
There were some problems there, too.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back, and Bill's got all kinds of stuff, interesting things to talk about. So we'll be back here in just a minute.
For over 30 years, we've had the privilege to live and work in this great community. Kerrigan, Estes, Rankin, McLeod, and Thompson, representing accident victims across Northwest Florida.
All right, we're back within reason, Bob and Bill. Thank you for your calls, emails, suggestions, and Bill. I haven't told you. We had people who want the books.
Oh, good.
They left it on my voicemail, and I was mad at you, and so I didn't tell you. But now I feel bad about that, so now I'm going to tell you.
Well, good.
Yeah. So
this refers back to the last time we were on, when I had some including the book "Throw Them All Out" by Peter Schweitzer.
Everybody wants to throw them all out.
That's a great book.
They want that throw them all out.
Well, the runners-up will get some other books.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
Well, I only got one
so
book.
we did have some nice responses to that. Okay.
Now, you usually show up here with some questions that were really dutifully rehearsed by reading one page of Harper's, but I have some questions for you. This is, regarding our federal government. Is there still a car czar in the Obama administration?
Yes.
Well, of course, there wouldn't be any reason for asking the question.
Why would you ask the question?
Otherwise. Yes, there is. There is still a car czar, despite all the wonderful successes they're touting.
Well, keep this in mind. Our folks, saved the auto industry. You don't want to give us any credit for it.
Nonsense.
It's like, oh, well, if we'd have bankrupted everybody, it would have been a lot better. No. We look at, you know what? Ford sells way more cars in China. Do you know that? Than they do in the United States. I didn't know that.
Didn't know that. I know GM sells a lot of cars in China.
Maybe it was GM, but
GM sells a lot. The Buick is a big seller in China.
Buick is a big seller in China. So the auto industry, Obama saved it. That's it. I think that's undisputed. What do you got? What's your next question?
They saved it for the unions. They should have gone bankrupt. I mean, that is disputed by me.
I know.
It's nonsense. They did it all for the
one of
the old czars admitted he did it for the unions. The unions wind up with a big chunk of the company. The bondholders take a hike.
You know what? What's wrong with the union people? They actually make the cars. Okay, they actually are on the floor putting the nuts and bolts on the car to make sure they run okay, so that we can buy them. While the management guys are forecasting the company into doom. That's kind of what we had with.
You think they're underpaid?
Yeah, the workers. Yeah, the workers are.
They're underpaid.
They're all, relative to the CEOs. Okay, relative to the CEOs, they're underpaid.
Guys, one of the problems with
you always
Detroit
want to look at the workers independently.
the legacy
they make
costs.
$28 an hour.
They make way more than that.
Whatever they make, and they said, yeah, but you never want to discuss the disparate pay.
All right, we'll discuss
of
that.
Management.
CEO pay is a scandal in this country. They get paid way too much. It doesn't mean the workers get paid properly or the unions haven't screwed everybody with all these legacy costs. But this is a different subject.
All right,
Here
so
we are.
everybody's screwing everybody, I guess.
You might be surprised to know, there's still a Karzar. Jay Williams is the director of Office of Recovery for Auto Communities and Workers.
I'm happy we have a man
Just
like
sounds like one of the...
I'm happy we have a person like that.
Okay.
What if we
and
didn't?
he works with the Office of Recovery, and this comes off their website.
Yeah.
The Office of Recovery for, you didn't know this existed, I didn't either, for Auto Communities and Workers, with the leadership of Labor Secretary Hilda Solis, for beauty, and National Economic Council Director Gene Sperling, works with federal agencies to address issues of special importance to automotive communities and workers. Just a mouthful of bureaucrat speak, which, you want to sum this up? Wasting money.
Well, let me just make this quick observation, okay? If your people were in office, they would gut the unions, just like your Walker boy did. They would gut the unions.
We're going to get to Walker, gutting the unions.
Do away with them. I mean, they would do everything they could to
disenfranchise? We'll get to that. I have
is there a
actual
word disembowel? I'm trying to
disembowel.
Disembowel.
You think they're going to disembowel them?
Yeah, the whole union.
That's what the Democrats do.
Yeah.
A war. The guy running against Walker said we're having a war on the middle class. He says to the union, to the public sector unions, pay a couple of percentage toward your pension. God damn it! It's a war. How about paying a little toward your health care? What? Now, he does want to get rid of mandatory union dues. I think he's right about that, and that really freaks him out.
Well, your people
Walker.
are bringing in about, what, $60 million to make sure he stays in office? They're going to buy it, okay? They're going to buy him back in office.
The unions, those...
They'll have any money. They don't have any money.
Spent a fortune. They went crazy.
They have a total
and spent a fortune.
They have a total of $4 million committed to this guy's campaign that Walker's going to
They've got
win.
all these.
Walker's has a ton of money.
Has been liberal Yahoo.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Walker has.
Yeah, he's got all the fat cat money.
He's got some of my money. I think it's an outrage.
Yeah.
Walker wants to get him to pay a little bit. It's a war. It's terrible. What? You're ruining the middle class. That's nonsense. The unions do not represent the middle class.
Oh, they certainly do. Who do you think they are? They don't represent the management. Union people are the middle. They used to be the middle class in this country. Yeah, now they're the low class. Okay, they used to be the middle class.
The unions, especially these public sector unions, are kind of the upper class.
Well, we've talked about the abuses of the public sector unions, and I think there are
And that's
abuses.
what's going on. And that's what Walker's trying to address, which was in his campaign promises. And the liberals just absolutely freaked out and went crazy, including Obama. What? You're taking away collective bargaining. Wait a minute, Obama. You don't have it in the federal system.
Yeah.
He left that out.
Yeah, he did.
Here's another question for you. This is, and then I'm out of questions.
Okay.
How many new federal commissions and boards for health care reform are there in Obamacare?
How many
do you think there are?
Commissions?
New commissions and boards.
I would say there's probably 30 new commissions and 15 new boards.
Ah, that's good. Short by a lot. 159.
What?
Commissions and boards. I have the list. You know how Joe McCarthy always had lists? I have a list of communists in the State Department. I actually have a list, and I'm going to share it with you. I've got every one of them. Now, most of them are just bureaucratic muddle mush.
Would you mind not reading them all?
No.
Oh, okay.
I want to read a few.
You can read all you want.
Okay. Because you would think, first of all, you think all these boards are a way to get a lot of efficiency and savings in taxpayer money?
So.
Probably not.
I don't think so.
But
can I ask you this while you read this? When we finish all this,
read a few.
Yeah, but wait, when we finish, just tell me what the Republican plan is to handle the health care problem in this country. We have 46 million people with no insurance.
Please
But go ahead.
throw down the Trump card.
Yeah,
The Republicans don't have a plan.
Oh, I'm
We're
sorry.
in a mess.
Okay.
But Obamacare is worse than nothing.
Okay.
Obamacare is a politicized disaster, plus being unconstitutional, which hasn't bothered Bob to date.
Okay.
Well, maybe a little bit. All right. But
What bothers me
but
is all the
certainly
exemptions.
all of the
That bothers
the
me.
unions get exempt from
Well,
that.
all of Nancy.
A lot of people. If you're a friend of Obama, you're exempt
And Nancy
from that.
Pelosi. I mean,
that too.
it was terrible.
It's a scandal. It's all politicized.
All right.
And we agree on some of this.
Some of this,
but
yeah.
at least all of these things, although they're bureaucrats.
Are you going to read the
all
ones that
related
you
to
think are
healthcare.
really going to be helpful and effective? Or are you going to read the ones you think are just
I
absurd?
can read all the ones I think are going to be helpful and effective.
Okay.
Zero. All right, let's go on to the next point. None are going to be helpful and effective.
All right, good.
But here's what you got. Now, this is health care.
All right.
You've got Health and Human Services Coordinating Committee on Women's Health, Centers for Disease Control Office of Women's Health, Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality Office of Women's Health, Health Resources and Service Administration Office of Women's Health. How many of these do you need? Food and Drug Administration Offices of Women's Health. Do you think there are men's health in here?
No.
Actually, there are.
Oh.
Yes,
Okay,
there
good.
are. Because
Not-
we can go to those.
Not for white men.
Well, not specifically for white men. That would be discrimination. But there is the Elder Justice Coordinating Council.
I know you're
Now,
interested in
answer
that.
in a few words how this has a damn thing to do with health care.
Say the name again.
Elder Justice Coordinating Council.
Well, why would you be opposed to justice for elderly people? I don't understand the problem. These are important
It's
offices.
in Obamacare.
These are
So you and I, if it's related to health care at all, are in that.
well, if something is unjust to you and I, and we meet that elder category, we have someone we can call. You can't call your
Unfortunately-
congressman. Okay.
We have so many
He's twitting.
federal laws.
He's twitting. We
and
can't call him.
things.
Go ahead.
And so we put an extra one in Obamacare. It's a couple of
All right, you
million
got some
dollars,
more?
maybe $1 billion.
You got some.
Well, we do.
Yeah.
And men could come under this. There's the Office of Minority Health in
Yeah.
Centers for Disease Control, Office of Minority Health, and Health Resources and Service Administration. I didn't know there was such
Now,
a
you
thing.
understand that these offices are in existing federal agencies, are just designating
Yeah, a lot of these
within
are extra grants. And
they
some
are?
of them are just setting up
Okay.
extra agencies.
Okay, good. Yeah.
But just the fact that there are all these agencies all dealing with the same thing.
Yeah.
Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality. Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality. There are about 40 of these that all sound the same. For Minority Health. Food and Drug Administration Office of Minority Health.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You mean the drugs that are pure for white people are not pure for what? Well, if it's a good drug, it's a good drug for anybody, right?
Yeah, I would think that too.
There you think that's kind of stupid.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe
but the minorities
maybe
need to be
the
represented.
titles aren't as good as they could be. We could work on
Senators for Medicare and
Okay,
so you got all this stuff for minority health.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything that mentions men by name? You had all these women. Yes, there are.
it. All right, give it to me.
The Office of Indian Men's Health. See, Indians have different circulatory systems.
Is
than
this
white people.
Indians,
I think
or are these
I think
American
they're
Indians?
politically incorrect here. They should have said Native Americans.
Native Americans.
But it's the Office of Indians
I
Men's
mean, we
Health.
stole the country from them, but we're not going to give them health care. Is that the plan? That's the Republican plan.
Let's give them health care. Why do we have a separate office?
Don't we
Do they have
all-
a different number of teeth?
Well, don't we owe them a little bit more since we stole their land from them? Okay.
Actually, we don't. You're a
don't.
citizen in this country. That stealing went on a long time ago. And all the federal, the Bureau of Indian Affairs
Yeah.
is keeping them poor, for sure, at great cost.
Well, they got casinos, though. We're
But
trying to
now
help
this
them.
is health care.
All
The
right, good.
Indian Health Service Program for Treatment of Domestic Violence and Sexual Abuse.
Oh, there's a lot of
That's
that.
health care. There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
It's in the health. There's an extra organization.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now here's something that we all can get behind.
Yeah.
The Indian Youth Life Skills Demonstration Project. What the hell does that mean?
It means they're going to have
Indian life skills.
and they're going to be demonstrated.
What are life
Very
skills?
obvious to me what
How
that
to
is.
breathe?
No, life skills like
What's
how to
it?
get jobs and stuff, you know, so they can get them off the reservation, I guess. I mean, these seem to be These seem
Let's
to
go
be.
out and figure out how many programs are unsuccessfully trying to get the Indians off the reservation.
Well, you're
It's-
such a cynic.
when you look into
These
this-
are just people trying to do good. Okay, that's all we have here.
Yes, they are.
They are.
Actually, most of them are probably well-intentioned.
Yeah, they are,
and
they
they
are.
think the way to do it is to give themselves a nice office and the 2 assistants and then a trip to Las Vegas to talk about it when they need to have a convention.
You're unusually cynical tonight. This thing is...
This stuff makes you cynical, don't you think?
Are you going to announce the Republican plan at any time?
I'll announce the Republican plan right now.
Yeah.
They don't have one.
Yeah, and they're not
It's a terrible need. They don't have one. They're just bashing Obama.
Their goal is to gut everything they can gut. And I think Mitch McConnell said, listen, we're going to do everything we can to make sure Obama doesn't get reelected. We don't care about passing anything. We don't care about unemployment. We don't care about the economy. We don't care about anything. We're just going to screw Obama, and then we're all going to be, it's all going to be good because Romney's got a great plan. He's just going to announce it after he gets elected.
I don't think they have a plan.
They don't have a plan.
We need a plan.
No,
but Obamacare is not it. Obamacare is unconstitutional, wasteful, politicized, and stupid.
Well, it's a shame the Republicans didn't have a plan that could be debated where they could come out maybe with a compromise plan that everybody liked.
No, the Democrats didn't want to debate anything.
Oh, okay.
They didn't.
Well,
remember, they ran the whole thing in those days. They rammed it through before Scott Brown got in the Senate.
They didn't.
That's exactly what they did.
You couldn't ram anything through. They got that by their toenail hang on. That thing almost didn't get passed. They had to pull in a lot of favors.
They had to do a lot of bribing to get that done. Remember the Cornhusker kickback and the Louisiana Purchase and all of that. God, awful stuff.
Well, it's politics and it's unpleasant. All right, we're going to have more good, exciting things to talk about when we come back. Do you have anything else more positive and uplifting that you can bring? Well, good.
I got Scott Walker.
We'll talk about, Scott Walker, and they're buying him back in office. We'll be back here in just a minute with Within Reason.
For over 30 years, we've had the privilege to live and work in this great community. Kerrigan, Estes, Rankin, McLeod, and Thompson, representing accident victims across Northwest Florida.
Okay, we're back, and I'm pleased to announce one of the offices.
Reading from the list of 159 new offices and commissions.
And I did this without really any preparation. It's just obvious to me certain of these offices will appeal to the Republicans. And here's one dear to your folks' heart.
Good.
The Program for Advanced Determination of Tax Credit Eligibility.
Oh my God. Just that one sentence encapsulates almost everything that's wrong with the federal government.
I read it.
It's loony.
For an advanced determination of tax credit eligibility. That's an office that does that. I mean, like 18 or 20 people around there saying, oh, they'll give you an advanced view of your tax credit.
We're going to have punitive regulations and taxes, and then we're going to have offices that'll let you out of it.
I'm not saying Obamacare is the best plan. I'm saying it was a plan.
What a concession.
It was a plan.
It is a plan.
Effort to insure 46 million people. I made this point, so I'll quote myself on this. I made this point in another broadcast, which was this. You've got Medicare for old people like us, okay? You've got Medicaid for disabled people and women with the children and that sort of thing, and they need whatever the eligibility in Florida. I think it's about 1.3 million or something of people. Then, so who's not insured? The working middle class is not insured. The very people we want to keep healthy and keep them working and keep them happy, that's the group that's not insured. All the old people, they get it from Medicare. Okay, they're fine. All the disabled people, they get it from Medicaid. We don't have it for the people who need it the most. And that's heartbreaking, I think.
It is heartbreaking. I agree with you completely. Every day in our business, because we generally see people who are injured, out of work, lower socioeconomic group, one paycheck away from disaster. We get calls, they're going to kick me out of my house, seize my car.
What country in the world requires you to have a yard sale to get money for somebody who's got leukemia or
China.
who needs a maybe, or but they can't sell anything, and the yard sale in China would be a pot.
Well,
I mean, this country we got a lot of stuff to sell in the yard sale. But I mean, and then you go into the 7-Eleven and they have a canister that so-and-so is going to have an operation. It's like, what? You don't have enough. We don't have enough money. I mean, all the time people are turned down for surgery.
I agree with you.
It's heartbreaking. I mean, you know,
completely.
It's heartbreaking.
We talk to people who are working. They're just not great jobs, and they don't get health care.
And they work hard.
And then they
Two jobs.
Then they get injured, and they are totally screwed.
They're done.
And
then the insurance companies can hardly wait to make sure they get screwed. Okay, that's their primary mission in life: return high dividends for the stockholders and screw the people with claims. It's okay. Right. It's a business. We understand it. I understand insurance is a business, but it's a brutal, unfair business that depends on dragging things out so that the person with the claim gets so vulnerable, and they have to do it, that they settle for a fraction of what the case is worth. We deal with that, what, daily?
We deal with it daily. Let me tell you a story. This is a story from either last week or the week before last. The family not too far from here, and there's an 11-year-old kid and some other kids in the family, and they're wrestling around their horseplay, and the kid dislocates his great toe. But they're not on Medicaid, and they don't have health insurance, and they go to a hospital. And, you know, they probably don't look like Ozzie and Harriet. They're probably not all that well dressed, and you know, they don't have a lot of money. And so they hear the nurse whispering to the doctor, that doesn't look like a dislocation. It looks like a deformity. So they not only not get treatment, they get humiliated. The doctor says, it's not an emergency. I don't have to treat you because you don't have insurance. Go away. Now, they've got a kid with a dislocated toe, and he's crying and he's hurting. So they go to another hospital. This doctor says, well, that's a dislocated toe, puts it back together, and everything's fine. But not only do they get turned down, they get humiliated. Yeah. It's terrible. It sounds like an emergency to me, and it's one of the bad things that happens in our system. I agree with you. The system needs total reform.
Well, hopefully.
We need single payer. As much as I hate big government anything.
I agree. I totally agree with that. We have this pot of money, okay, of which this much is going for the profits of the insurance company. They are running the doctors, the very people in our society we want to be paid well because of the work
it all needs to be restructured.
They have to engage in to be a physician, and the stress that they have, and the enormous importance of our health care in our society. And so what do? We have a system that beats the doctors down by an insurance adjuster on a phone deciding who's going to get health care, who's going to get
Start
surgery.
with the idea that you've got to get it from your employer.
Right.
You know, that really needs to change.
It has to change.
Well, you're getting it from your employer, but your employer is narrowly constrained in what you can offer. You have to offer this. You have to offer that. I guess now you have to offer free contraceptives to avoid the war on women.
I hope
another disaster brought upon by the Obama.
I hope that's a factor. I hope it is.
We've discussed that before.
We have discussed that before.
If anybody who doesn't get free contraceptives is a victim of the war on women, that's the official Democratic policy. It's
do you have something else encouraging?
Now, I want to go to
anything inspiring on today's agenda, or is it mostly cynical stuff that you talk about at the Krispy Kreme on Thursday morning?
Turn on one of those sitcoms with a laugh track, you know, because this is all negative crap. There's nothing much here. Listen, this is about politics. Politics is ugly and illogical, and if there's anything uplifting about it.
Did you read Valentino's op-ed piece in the News Journal?
I didn't.
Yes, it was quite interesting. He's just a decent guy trying to do good for people. And they wrote this ugly editorial about him. And
that editorial was exactly on the money.
And they didn't sign the editorial. But I think I think Valentino has a point. And Schneider says, well, it's in the time-honored tradition of the newspaper.
I don't have to sign it.
But my view is editorials ought to be signed. I've said it for years. Listen, you know, we don't like anonymous things said that are critical of people. But put your name. If you want to say it, don't hide behind anonymity.
There's an editorial board
Yeah, I know that board fiction, okay? One person writes it, they ought to put their name on it. That's my view about that, okay?
Still right.
Yeah, well, the editorial.
And we can pretty much figure out who wrote them anyway.
Oh, yeah, we can. But see, the average citizen can't. That's what I'm saying, okay? And historically, you go back, you don't know who wrote those things. And I think it's important to have a signature on them. That's my personal view. I know that they don't do it,
It's
okay?
not unreasonable.
No, well, it's just a different view. All right, what else?
Now, we've been talking about the war on the middle class, and if you remember, back when Scott Walker passed these things, you had the most outrageous, it really was like back to the 60s. The organization that is opposing Walker, it actually looks like a throwback to the old Weathermen days. It's a clenched fist with a little red star on it. I swear to God. I mean, and I think what it is all these yuppies. There was a guy around here when they started the Occupy protest, a businessman, who thought it would be cool to go back to the old days, because he's an older guy, you know, back in the 60s when he was a hippie. Probably completely stoned and didn't realize that Che Guevara was a thug. So he shows up out here in his Che Guevara shirt.
I told you,
I have
a Che Guevara shirt. I have the shirt, okay? It was a personal gift to me from my friends in Cuba, okay? So that's, I have the shirt. I mean, I'm proud of that shirt.
You're proud of the shirt?
I like Che. I like Che. I like what he stands for, okay? I mean,
what?
I like what he
Murder?
No, he liked to travel. I liked him. He was an interesting guy. He went around looking for rebellion, okay? And he
Che Guevara's this nice-looking guy in a beret, and all the stoners, that's all they need to know.
That's
it. Revolutionary power to the people.
So we're back to the Walker people.
Back to Walker.
You're trying to say they're kind of Che Guevara type people or what?
Totally freaked out. This is a war on the middle class, and the Democrats and the unions went really totally nuts. This is what Walker has done to them. He wants the government workers to pay 5.8% of their paychecks toward pensions. The private sector pays a lot more. And 12.6% of their health care insurance premiums. That's not 12.6% of their pay. Whatever their premiums are, pay 12.6% of that. Now, our employees, by and large, pay a much bigger percentage than that toward their health care. But this is the source of total freak-out, screaming outrage by the lefties. Doom and gloom. But here's what's happened. Property taxes have gone down. Wisconsin moved up, you know, and the business magazines rate states to do business, more attractive to business.
Can you tell me, is this from a Wall Street Journal op-ed piece you're getting this from? Because
probably. It's a source of truth.
But there's some number problems with that. I mean, Wisconsin's had the slowest growth rate. There's some other things going on out there. Okay,
and you think that growth rate's going to speed up when unions get to run things and suck up all the money in pensions? Well, not likely.
I think that's a false dilemma. But
go ahead. Public sector pensions are ruining everything. In San Jose, a growing city, they're cutting down on employees, they're cutting down on parts.
See, you know where you make headway on these arguments is you pick things that I basically agree with.
All right, let me pick this. Pensacola.
Well, I'm saying you pick things I basically agree with, that there are huge problems with these public pensions, huge problems. City Police Department, the fire guys, they pay 11%, I think. The City Police Department,
we've discussed
they
this
pay
before.
0.5%. They don't want to pay anymore, and they want the same deal they've always had.
Pensacola is an example of public sector pension plans being ruinous. Walker wants to do a little something about it. And it's just a cause for craziness.
He may be right.
He's going to win.
I think trying to remove him from office was a stupid thing to do. You wait till he's up for re-election, you form whatever you're going to form, you go after him. But to try to get a recall, first of all, the average person doesn't like the idea of a recall anyway. They don't like that. It's offensive
unless there's
to
a crime.
Right.
I mean, it's in there because people just
philosophically
take off and leave the country and don't do their job at all, or commit a crime,
or commit a embezzlement or something, or run off like the guy in South Carolina who claimed he was on a mission trip.
He deserved the boot.
Laid up in to Argentina. I mean, that's a possible basis for it. Not this, not just a disagreement with his proposals in terms of employee participation. Well, let me go to. Are you finished with Walker? Because I was going to.
I'm finished with Walker.
Let's go to Bloomberg.
Oh, I love Mayor Bloomberg.
Well, they came out and said
It's the craziest thing.
This is almost uniform that these actuaries use 8% for a projected rate of return, which is...
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the big drinks.
Well, we'll get to the big drinks. So, yeah, but the 8% returns, yeah, well, I knew you were waiting for
I love that.
I know you were waiting for the big drinks because you want everybody to consume lots of sugar and just get enormous...
I want people to do whatever the hell they want without Bloomberg interfering.
So anyway, so Bloomberg says... When in the New York pension, I think it's $1.3 billion or something to drop it from 8
they are
to
generous to union members.
8 to 7. So what Bloomberg says was, forget 7. That is a huge overstatement of projected returns in the future. It needs to be down to at least to 6 or 5.5. Can you imagine in the city of Pensacola? We had that. We had John Asmar on. We went over those numbers and Falzone, right?
Dave Penzone.
Penzone. I'm sorry, Penzone. And he had the numbers nailed down. I mean, it is huge. Millions of mates. And we're talking about a percentage point drop from 8%, which is ridiculous on a projected return going out in the future when you've had 5% for the last 4 or 5 years.
Right.
So we
the
got
actuaries come and tell you, based on some very complex calculations, what you can expect, and then based on that, how many millions and millions of dollars this little city has to contribute. Well, if you lower the rate of return, then they got to contribute more. If we go down a percentage point, I don't think we'll have any parks left. We'll just have to take all the money and give it to the public sector pensions.
And right now we're giving them more than all the ad valorem tax revenues we receive. All the city tax revenues that we receive, we pay more than that amount into the city pension funds.
Now that's not the current employees' health plans and salaries. That's just pensions. And it's crazy. I believe that the mayor's got the courage to do something about it.
He's trying to do something about it, but I can tell you these unions are locked down. And the worst ones locked down are the PBA guys, okay?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're not giving up a nickel. They'll fight you. They'll fight you for 52 cents, all right?
The police and firemen have always had this going for them. There are heroes. There are saviors, and they have difficult jobs, and they're in danger all the time, and they ought to get good pay and good benefits.
No
question. But this is crazy.
No question they ought to get it. Absolutely. To the point, though, that you ought to consider either eliminating the city police department in its entirety, or cutting it in half, or something. Which all those things could be done.
Well, if you want to leave the city police department, what you're going to have to do is something very drastic to the pension.
You're going to have to, because there's not enough
Otherwise,
money.
you project it out, and
we're going to talk in the next couple of weeks about the possible boondoggle, okay, in my view, of building this ballpark in terms of the fiscal impact on the city and what it's going to mean to the CRA and to the city of Pensacola. We'll talk about that in the future. But we're going to take a short break now, and our last break, and then we'll come right back to finish this up today.
Can we talk about the big gulp?
And the big gulp. We'll be back with the big gulp.
For over 30 years, we've had the privilege to live and work in this great community. Kerrigan, Estes, Rankin, McLeod, and Thompson, representing accident victims across Northwest Florida.
Okay, we're back within reason. Now, the idea that we don't have the fairness doctrine anymore allows us to make these comments without allowing equal time for people to respond. I mean, that's just because there's so many avenues. For example, you can write a viewpoint. We talked about a viewpoint writer. You can
have a blog.
You can have a blog. You can call in. So don't complain to us that you want equal time to rebut anything that's said on this program. No, you had something. What did you have?
Well, we want to get to John Edwards,
but
what has gotten an enormous amount of press is Mayor Bloomberg, the nanny, mayor. He has banned trans fats, smoking anywhere.
He's a Republican.
Yeah, he's kind of a Republican.
Oh,
He's
come
in New York.
on.
There's a lot I like
How can you
about
be
him.
this is like kind of pregnant. No, he's a Republican.
You can't
He
be
has
a real
big...
Republican in New York. You got to be pro-unions, pro-gays, pro-abortion, pro-everything, or you don't get elected in New York. So he's kind of a Republican.
He's what you would call him a moderate Republican, wouldn't you?
I would. I don't think that's unfair.
Yeah, and that's terrible.
And I like
for your
it.
people, that's terrible because
That's, the problem. I wish I had some people. The Libertarian Party consists of 3 guys in funny hats.
Yeah,
That's about
there isn't much.
No,
Well,
not much.
yeah,
and me. I have a card. I gave him $25 and I have a card.
that's
I'm a
good.
member,
Well, that was
a
very-
card-carrying member of the
very,
Libertarian
very
Party.
generous of you to do that. I mean, to
What's what it
support them
cost?
financially.
$25. I gave him $25.
Okay. Well, now talk about the big drinks, of which I think
big
it was
drinks.
wonderful when he did it. But go ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
this,
And the trans fats.
This is typical. You find something that's a good idea. It would be probably a good idea if people who weren't already about 80 pounds overweight kind of limited their Cokes to about 12 ounces instead of 40 ounces or something. That'd probably be a good idea. It's
Yeah.
probably not good for your health.
Yeah.
An aside, I hope we got time for this. I was at the baseball game last night, and I know you're kind of down on the park and the bond.
No,
but
I'm not down on the park. I just said it's a
The park
$50
is
million
great. Oh, yeah.
debt, okay,
Yeah.
that we can't pay for. But
Well,
go ahead.
a lot of the boondoggles that we can't pay for aren't as enjoyable as the park.
I agree with
kinda
that,
like
too.
the park.
I agree with that,
It's
too.
fun out there. It was a beautiful day.
Yeah.
The Wahoos gave it away, but that's a different issue.
Yeah, they lost tonight, too. I was listening to it.
Having read all about Bloomberg, and I read some commentary on it, and I thought about it, and I've got a startling take on that, too, that you probably haven't thought of for later.
Did somebody else tell you it was startling, or is that your own?
No, this is my own.
Oh, well, go
This is my own.
Well,
This
go
is
ahead.
good.
I mean, it's very complimentary
So-
to your own ideas, but go ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
you're not going to help me.
I probably won't, but go ahead.
So I started noticing
Yeah.
the snacks. You know, we have a few overweight people in Pensacola.
Yeah.
There are people, and it was great fun. There were a lot of kids. Everybody was having a good time. It was
Yeah.
a beautiful night. It really was the most positive.
Good.
And it's hard to find something negative, but I did, and I brought it back. And that is
Okay.
some of these people.
Yeah.
Whenever they finished one heart-clogging snack, they wouldn't wait till the end of the inning. They had to get up and get
Get some
another
more.
one. Get up and get another one.
Nachos
There was
and
one
stuff.
lady near
Yeah.
me who had to be maybe 80, 100 pounds overweight, and she's
Yeah.
eating, I swear to God, cotton candy.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
She wanted a little
And
sweet.
she
What's wrong
wanted
with that?
something. The cotton candy's about this
Yeah,
big.
it's good.
God knows.
Do you think that
No.
you think the city council ought to
Absolutely not.
eliminate that kind of stuff?
They're making money on it.
Of course, they're making.
This
money.
is America. If
So-
you want to be 100 pounds overweight and eat cotton candy,
Do they have things
well,
like
I don't
hot
have to
dogs
eat
and
it.
stuff like that?
They
out
got
there?
hot dogs. They got very good beer. They got McGuire's Red Ale, which is very good.
Oh,
I've
well,
tried
good.
that myself. It's
Yeah,
excellent.
that's
The hot dogs are good. I recommend the hot dogs, and they've got chopped onions.
Is it-
So
is
there's
it?
a lot to like about the park.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're
But-
back to Bloomberg.
Now we're back to Bloomberg.
Yeah.
So Bloomberg thinks it's a bad idea for people to be getting, you could bathe your dog in these
Can I
cups.
tell you what
mean,
you've just done, by the way?
What?
Now, anybody that sees you at the park, they're going to go out and they're going to have to eat away from you because they're going to know that you're watching and making a note of what they're eating. That's what you've done.
Because I sit at the end of the aisle,
Yeah,
and
there's-
I've got to get up about 4 times during the inning. So
yeah.
there's a
They're good.
method to this, you know?
All right, sorry.
That's right. No, they're all lovely people. And the
Yeah.
people around me weren't overweight or
Yeah.
gluttons at all.
Except the
I
one,
love all
the
those.
lady with the cotton
No,
candy.
she was way over.
She's looking for you the next game. I can tell you that, buddy. She's going to say,
God.
"There he is!"
should
And her
be
big, her husband is a motorcycle guy. He's got arms like this. Hey, I want to talk to you, Bubba. Come out here, okay? That's coming.
I got a response for that. I didn't mean her. She's svelte. You calling her fat? She looks great to me. So Bloomberg comes
let's-
out.
yeah.
And based on nothing. Now, New York is the city of donuts, bagels, hot dogs,
Dope.
pizza, dope, overeating of all kinds.
Yeah.
So Mayor Bloomberg, based on nothing, and it's highly unlikely to be effective,
Yeah.
is going to spend a lot of time and effort banning drinks. Now, you can buy 4 16-ounce drinks, but anything over 16 ounces in a public venue, you can't do it.
But you could buy a 16-ounce drink and refill it.
8 times.
But you can't get a 24-ounce drink. Okay?
Great. Now, if you read the comments,
Yeah.
were livid. Everybody says, "What are you doing?" Now, here's my take on this. My comment.
Yeah.
We talked about
And
the
New
national.
Yorkers are bad people to make angry.
Boy, they don't suffer in silence.
They don't.
But we've talked about the National Defense Authorization Act,
Yeah, we
where
have.
anybody can be hauled off and locked up for life without a lawyer.
Yeah.
People are pretty good with that. Take away the big gulp, and they go nuts. What? I can only get 16 ounces? Then I got to go back and get another 16 ounces?
Yeah.
In order to get 100 ounces of soda in me in a game, I got to make 4 trips. That's terrible.
No, it's about 6 trips.
It's
Actually,
well,
your
it's
math's
6
not too
trips.
good, okay? A little over 6 trips, but that's good, you know.
But it's just crazy. Now, so what?
Yeah.
And the so what is this. It
Yeah.
makes people used to government interference. You know, the slippery slope isn't a rigid, deductive argument, but you just get used to spread your arms, assume this position, we're going to pat you down. You know, oh, you can't have that. You can't have toilets that flush too much. You can't have good showers. You can't have light bulbs. And we just gradually get accustomed to this. What's next?
You know what pushes this? You ought to be happy about this, because every once in a while they go too far.
Yeah.
And this drink thing may cause everybody to start saying, and I'll tell you something else I don't like. They make me do this, and they're making me buy these light bulbs, and they're making me do this, and might be the best thing that happened.
It's been a serious. Now, Mrs. Obama, I don't know who appointed her to this, is on a weight loss campaign, which is probably costing the taxpayers.
She's setting an image.
If Mrs. Obama goes to a school in Cincinnati, let's say, as opposed to you going to the school and giving the same speech, what do you think it costs the taxpayers?
Oh, don't worry
a few
about
million
that.
bucks.
I don't worry about that. They have an expensive.
And she's well-intentioned. She's a nice lady. She's really fit, so she's
but
a
no,
role
really,
model.
I think she does help set a standard, a behavioral standard.
Oh, that's a good point.
The First Lady has a huge influence on young women, especially.
And a First Lady who is very fit and stylish,
and she
probably does some good.
She walks the walk, okay?
Oh, yeah.
She's not sitting there like Barbara Bush,
very fit,
looking like she just ate about 16 Whataburgers.
What I object to is she could just look good without all the flights to Cincinnati at taxpayer expense to tell people that you shouldn't be too fat. I think we all know.
I think you're frugal to a fault on that. But go ahead. What else you got?
Yeah, well, they need to be more frugal.
Okay, what else you got? We got about 2 minutes left. Do you have anything else?
No, you want to talk. We got 2 minutes. We can do John Edwards.
Oh, John Edwards, yeah. So the jury acquitted him on 1 count, hung up on the others. Most of the jurors, 9 of them, wanted to let him go because the government hadn't proved the case. Government shouldn't have prosecuted the case anyway. I think all of the naysayers are saying that now. They weren't saying it much before.
No, we said it.
Yeah, we did.
They politicize everything. Isn't this the office of something? There's a special office in the Justice Department.
Pregnancy integrity.
Yeah, the office of so that's it. Governmental integrity.
And then I think afterwards, when he gave his news conference, 2 interesting things happened afterwards. 2 jurors were being interviewed by the press, and they were in a hurry. They couldn't talk because they had to catch a plane to go to New York to be on the talk shows. Okay, then he gives a news account, and the heartbreaking thing to me was what it did to his wife, the whole thing that happened, and then her death. I mean, how can your heart not go out to, or their family and her for what this guy did, which is just despicable. But then he says how much he loves his new love baby. How was that the press conference?
Probably does.
Well, I know, but I mean, he waited till after he got acquitted before he offered that item, okay? Yeah. Then so he said...
We agree. The prosecution, which no doubt cost the taxpayers another few million...
A lot of money,
was... None of that money went in his campaign account.
I think what they did...
couldn't prove it.
They did it to say, the Democrats will prosecute the Democrats. Yeah. Even though it's stupid, okay? And it shouldn't have been done. But look, we're neutral, we're even-handed, we're doing this, and poor Don Siegelman, they still can't get any relief.
That's terrible.
For what they did to him in Alabama. Just awful what the Bushes did to him in Alabama. And that Karl Rove, that devious...
Right. I agree with you. Don Siegelman got screwed and should get some relief. We've got too many federal crimes, too many federal prosecutions, too much federal everything.
You and I agree with that.
Good.
And finally, we'll leave on this, that we both support a constitutional amendment that makes the federal judges subject to voter recall.
Or
affirmation.
And we repeat our support for Justice Quince, Justice Perienti, and Justice Lewis. They should be retained.
Amen. 100% vote to affirm those 3 justices. They're fine. And we believe that about all 7 of them, even the most conservative on the Supreme Court.
Right.
They're good human beings. They're honest.
They're doing their job.
People. We're wrapping this up tonight. Within reason, email, call us. Send us a telegram, whatever you want to do.
Just don't come by. We're busy.
We'll see you next week. Thanks.
For over 30 years, we've had the privilege to live and work in this great community. Kerrigan, Estes, Rankin, McLeod, and Thompson, representing accident victims across Northwest Florida.